This is music, and this is another stack of songs from the Pukebox. Welcome to another episode of Songs from the Pukebox, the worst titled What's Spinning series ever. The idea behind these series, these videos, is basically just for me to share with you some of the music I've listened to over the last week or so and talk about it basically. So let's get down to business. Up first, we got 3 Inches of Blood, Here Awaits Thy Doom. Traditional heavy metal without being new wave of traditional heavy metal. This was kind of before this new wave of traditional heavy metal, but so it has a very modern sound. It doesn't try to emulate the sound of early 80s metal, but it is quite inspired musically by just old school heavy metal. There's a couple of thrash songs on here too, which I think is pretty cool. Quite enjoy this. Very, very catchy songs with sing-along choruses, awesome guitar riffs and all that good stuff. The vocals are of the Udo Dirkschneider school, so it might not be, to everybody's taste, but I quite enjoy it. Up next, a single here, Alien Ant Farm, Smooth Criminal. So this is their cover of the popular Michael Jackson song. I think it's a very good cover. I enjoy listening to it. I also quite like the original. The other songs that are on here, Orange Appeal and Denigrate, are not interesting to me at all, but Smooth Criminal, I think it's a pretty good rock cover of a Michael Jackson song. Up next, 13 by Black Sabbath, where Ozzy Osbourne returned to the band. I don't think it's their best album at all, but there's some pretty good songs on here. I think End of the Beginning is a pretty good song. I quite like Age of Reason, and Damaged Soul and Dear Father are pretty good too. So it's a pretty solid album, but it is, in my opinion, it does not live up to the hype that that was cultivated around it back when it came out. And I remember already the song God Is Dead. That was a bit underwhelming to me, but nonetheless, not a bad album. And now, Dubliners Greatest Hits 1. Some Irish folk music, and also Greatest Hits 2. So yeah, just 2 collections of songs by the Dubliners. There's some live stuff, there's some studio stuff on here. Of course, you have their version of Whiskey in the Jar. So if you're only used to Metallica's okay cover version of Thin Lizzy's cover version, which is a good cover version, and you haven't heard the original, check it out. It's pretty nice. So yeah, I like the songs on here. You have some drinking tunes. You have lots of songs about rebellion and freedom and all that stuff as well. There's some humorous songs too. My favorites are, of course, Whiskey in the Jar and Master McGrath. I really like that one. The Lark in the Morning is a nice, uplifting yet quite a melancholic song, and that actually applies to all of them. So yeah, if you're interested in some fairly accessible Irish folk music, and maybe you think that Lord of the Dance is Irish folk music, there's much more to it here. As it happens, Lord of the Dance, there's a song on here too called that. But just pretty enjoyable folk music. Something completely different, Total Terror by Holy Terror. So this is the box set that features Mind Wars, Terror and Submission, El Revenjo, and Alive Terror. I only listened to Terror and Submission and Mind Wars, the studio albums. And this is speed thrash metal. And I remember back in the day when I just started getting into thrash metal and that sort of stuff, there was I don't remember who it was. Somebody from the crew that we would hang out with, who had somehow managed to pick up a record by this band. Terror Submission or Mind Games, I don't remember. And it was the most extreme stuff we'd heard up until then. We were used to Megadeth and Metallica and things like that. This one's stuff here seemed super extreme compared to that. Nowadays, when I listen to it, I can see why we thought it was extreme, but it's kind of, you know, pretty aggressive speed metal, but also much more melodic than it seemed back then. Is really good stuff. Terror and Submission, the production is a bit weak on that one. I think it's a bit very 80s. It's drowned in reverb and all that stuff. Mind Wars has a much tighter production. It sounds much better musically. I don't hear a super big difference between those two, but yeah, if you're interested in some darker and more aggressive speed metal, there are some super fast songs on here too. Check out Holy Terror. Up next, Static Impulse by James LaBrie. So progressive metal solo project in name, at least, by James LaBrie from Dream Theater. This is much more aggressive than Dream Theater. This is basically progressive metal merged with melodic death metal, and I think it's the drummer who also provides harsh growled vocals, and they work very well with LaBrie's more sort of clean singing. There's some really good songs on here, very heavy guitar tone, progressive but not really inaccessible, especially if you like melodic death metal. Very good stuff. I quite enjoy listening to this. I think this is better than some Dream Theater albums, to be perfectly honest. Up next, Smear Campaign by Napalm Death. So this is grindcore and a challenging listen, to be sure, but you know, it's Napalm Death. Everything by them almost is a challenging listen, but this one is challenging even compared to that. I really enjoy it. I really like the songs on here, especially Sink Fast, Let Go. That's a great song, especially when it starts out really chaotic and grindy and then it becomes more of a punky song. And I also quite like When All Is Said and Done. But all the songs on here are great, but it's a challenging listen. You got blast beats and dissonant chords, and you got you know, death grunts combined with, you know, shrieks and screams, combined with almost like a baritone chant style of singing, which, as far as I am informed, is because Barney Greenway quite likes the Swans, and it's an kind of influence from the Swans. So you have that, and you have lots of just punky sounding stuff, and the drum tone is also in your face. You're constantly pummeled, so it's a challenging listen, to be sure, but very enjoyable. If you're not already into grindcore, this might not be the best starting point. If you want to get into Napalm Death, that would probably be some of their 90s death metal stuff, but very good stuff. I really enjoy listening to this, extreme though it is. Up next, Oiran by Nemophila. This was just next to Napalm Death, so I really like this one, so I decided to grab it. And of course, next to that one, there was also Revive, also by Nemophila, so I decided to grab that one and listen to that one too. So very similar in style here. We're dealing with modern metal, very heavy guitar tone, influences from metalcore, thrash metal, new metal, traditional heavy metal, and it's really good. These ladies are fantastic musicians. The guitar duo they have going on there, they're just amazing guitarists. The drummer is a beast. Their vocalist has just an amazing voice. She can belt, she can croon, she can scream. amazing singer. The bass player gets to shine in some of the songs, especially on here. She gets to play some funky bass as well. She's a great bass player, but often she's a bit in the background. But great stuff. I really like this. The highlight to me is everything about it. It is modern metal, so if you don't like modern metal, might not be your cup of tea. It's not overly metalcore, it's not overly new metal, it's not overly any of that stuff. It's all mixed together very well. The songs are great. If you want to check out some modern metal, this might be a good place to start. Fantastic musicians. Up next, Neuraxis, Truth Beyond and Imagery and Passage into Forlorn. So it's kind of a 3-in-1 here. You have 3 albums in one. This is technical, brutal death metal, and it's very good. I do prefer the middle one here, Imagery, which is from '97, I think, originally, because it's the most straight up death metal sounding of the 3 albums. The production sounds the most like 90s death metal. There's more old school death metal in it. The 2 others, Truth Beyond and Passage into Forlorn, they're like 2000s style death metal. So lots of blast beats all the time, and it changes all the time. It's not very riffy compared to Imagery. Still very impressive stuff, very enjoyable to listen to those as well, but I do prefer Imagery. On Truth Beyond and Passage into Forlorn, I think they go a bit overboard with the blast beats. They're all over the place, and I think blast beats work the best when they're not overused, because it's a very intense drumming style, and if it's overused, it kind of loses its power, I think. So and that's why Imagery is also my favorite out of the 3, because it's not just blast beats all the time. The vocals are a combination of screams and growls, and there's a bit too much piggy wiggy stuff going on in the vocals for my taste. Doesn't ruin the listening experience for me completely, but it does mean again that I prefer Imagery, which is a bit more Frank Mullen worship from Suffocation. And up last, Hell on Earth by Toxic Holocaust. Simple, dirty, straightforward, blasphemic thrash metal. Some people call it blackened thrash. Quite primitive stuff, but enjoyable. I like listening to this stuff every now and then. So there you go. A good stack of CDs this time. If any of this seems like it's something you would be interested in listening to, by all means, go ahead. Thanks for watching.